started with this one, kind of on a Norfolk grant.
Yeah.
And everything was in here. The DBIC grant is back through that hallway. Go ahead, Chris, take us in there. I'm just kind of holding this door so we don't whack anybody.
So the grants really made the difference in your ability to
Yes.
make the decision.
That got us going. It really did.
Yeah.
So this came basically as a, you know, the shipping container shows up, and about a week later, once you hook up the electric and the plumbing and the drains, it ends up going. It came
Is
with
this a
these
separator?
This is a separator.
Oh, that's a separator.
It's
Yeah.
probably 50s vintage. But that's what allows us to make the reduced fat milk and also make cream. 2 pasteurizing vats, they're on their side right now.
Yeah.
And those allow us to make the volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's 150 gallons each. And so doing high volume, because these bagging boxes are 5 gallons each, doing the high volume, we needed bigger vats, and so the grant helped us get that. So there's not much to it. We catch the milk. The milk is right in this line right now, but we hook it up to there and then we tip it down into the vat so we don't have to carry milk cans. And once they're full, then if it's chocolate, we mix it. The reduced fat.
So you do the chocolate yourself here too?
Yeah. We use cocoa powder, cane sugar, vanilla, salt, 4 ingredients. And then for the schools, we have to add vitamins A and D because it's reduced fat. Whole fat milk has what it needs in it. Kind of designed that way. So, anyway.
It's pretty good. Pretty straightforward. So, where do you do the bottling?
Okay, the bottling is over in here now. So this is the raw product, and the pasteurized product is in here. The milk comes over on this line and goes through the 2 coolers, and then it goes into, this is the bottling machine. We modify it for bags versus bottles. And then once it's bottled, then it comes in here in the fridge. So
right here.
This is actually a very tired box. So we do the bag and box with the rubber hoses.
Yeah.
This is the one the state sample goes in, but this is what the schools will get.
Yeah.
It's a box like this with the little rubber hose comes out the top.
That's easy to handle for them.
Yeah, I mean they're 5 gallons, it's about 45 pounds, but so that's the chocolate, and then the 1%. This one. So anyway, school
You said
ended.
the chocolate to the schools?
Yeah, but it's chocolate skim.
Yeah.
Which is disgusting.
I'm with you.
Okay.
There's my headline.
So we're gonna haul out some milk for everybody who wants to drink milk. You don't have to drink these. We have coffee milk, which is my favorite. We have maple milk. Maple milk, which is 1 gallon of syrup, 25 gallons of milk.
Okay. We'll go out and drink.
Maple milk. Make sure you have the maple milk. Do the maple one here. The maple one. Yeah, and I want to get a little closer up so we can see the cover. See the look.
That was actually
You're getting peanut.
Alright. Yeah.
So that was actually a maple leaf from one of our trees. I just scanned it directly in on the scanner.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm like, oh, where did I get maple?
You would have been.
Pete, thank you.
Absolutely. Hey Peter, right on the right, there's a basket or 2 of cookies my mother-in-law made for us to have milk
Better
and
have
cookies.
that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
So
Wow.
I'm just bringing out the chocolate.
So, I am so excited. Having this cookie and this maple milk. Oh my God. You know what? It's really, I gotta confess, I'm on the clock. This is called work. I'm here at the Miller Farm, the Miller extended family, and talking about milk in Vermont is really fun. I mean, I got a good job. You know what I mean? I am excited. I was talking to Pete, and I have memories when I first came to Vermont. It was your great uncle?
My great uncle.
Your great uncle, Elwin Miller, used to be a side judge, and I did work in the county, and Elwin would kind of check me out, ask me why I was one of those liberals, you know. We had a really good time. But it's so amazing, the Miller farm and the families. You've got, you and your brother are actively farming here. And it's so important that we keep local dairy and local farming going as much as we possibly can. That's really something that we don't want to ever give up on in Vermont, ever, ever, ever. But in order to do it, it's going to take more than just hard work by the Miller family. It's going to take markets. And one of the things that the Miller farm here has pioneered is getting local milk to our schools. And farm to school is probably one of the best ways to create that loop of the market and production. And I'm delighted that with the the Innovation Center, the Dairy Innovation Center, we got into law about 5 years ago, and we've got to get reestablished. With their help, they came up with the equipment. It's about $233,000 to make it possible for you to have the equipment you needed to do the separation, to be able to then get that local milk, and this is, of course, a dairy farm, to our schools. So kids are drinking very nutritional milk from down the road. That's more or less the way it is. So what the Dairy Innovation Center is all about is trying to come up with creative but really practical ways to help the farmers sell their products. And by the way, organic milk is incredibly nutritious. And I'm just delighted that the Dairy Innovation Center saw the Miller project as something that was going to be really beneficial to the farm, to the kids, and to the local community and the environment. So our goal, we're now in the midst of considering another farm bill, and it's always hard, very contentious. But what I find is the area of common ground when I'm talking to my colleagues, whether they're from red states or blue states, is there's a real appreciation for the effort that goes into local farming production, and where we can find ways to help those local farmers have a market. That's an area where I find common ground. So we'll keep pushing to get not only to get the farm bill passed, but to have an increase in the allocation of funding for the Dairy Innovation Center. And this is like Exhibit A. This is like Exhibit A of how it actually can work. So thank you all for being here. Thank you everybody for the work that you do. Who's next?
Laura is next.
Laura? Okay, Laura.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've never done, a press conference with a delicious cookie and maple milk, but I think it's something we may want to integrate into everyday deal. Okay.
So I'm Laura Ginsberg. I'm the Dairy Strategy and Innovation Manager at the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, where I lead the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center team. And I'm just so proud of the work that our center does. We were awarded competitively in 2019, and we've been underway really since 2021. So we were hoping 2020 would be the year we got started. We got a little sidetracked, but since 2021, we have been really actively supporting projects like the Miller Farm Project, farm-based projects, processor technical assistance projects across the 11-state region that we represent, from Pennsylvania, Maryland in the south up to Maine in the north. We've received a total of $45.8 million worth of federal funds. And by the end of this year, that number will be over 50 million. We've so far distributed, and these are active grant funds on the ground, over $28 million worth of projects. That being said, we've had a total request of 72 million. So we know that the demand and the need far exceeds what we're able to fund. I did want to highlight a few projects. Our average grant award is just under $100,000, so these aren't huge grants. We have grants ranging in size from about $5,000 on the low end to $1 million on the high end. So some of the projects that we're really proud of, we support cohort-based technical assistance, and this allows farmers and processors to engage with their peers and receive both peer-to-peer and one-on-one technical assistance on particular topics. We had one farmer that participated in the pilot cohort who was moving his cows outside for the very first time on his multi-generational farm. And in the first year of receiving that technical assistance to get his cows outside, he saved $34,000 in feed. So that's huge for a small farm. We also do grants for marketing and branding. So for processors to improve their brand presence on the store shelves, one of our core tenets is that we want our products to connect with consumers. And we also know that small processors oftentimes don't have the time or money to spend on improving their brand presence and marketing appeal of their products. So we provide small grants, $50,000. The recipients are required to work with a marketing and branding professional, and they can do really anything. So it can be e-commerce, it can be total brand redesign, it can be trade show materials. And what we've seen is that these projects increase sales well beyond the cost of the grant. So we have one recipient down in Rhode Island whose average sales per year were $750,000, and they're on track to top $1 million the first year after their grant. We had another recipient, a very small farm or butter processor, who received a grant to increase their e-commerce, and immediately their sales more than doubled. So really awesome success there. Also want to talk about the processor expansion grants. This was a direct outcome of the departure of Horizon from this region, and USDA asked us to come up with a request for what we could do to stabilize the organic market. And what we know is organic is very dependent on the conventional supply chain for processing and distribution. And what people said to us was, we need to invest in processing. We need to stabilize processing in the region to keep our farmers safe with markets for their milk. And last year we announced $12.2 million in grants for processors across the region for projects that will immediately increase their demand and processing of locally sourced milk. And that's for everything from organic yogurt and ice cream all the way to powdered products that are going to move out into the international markets. And finally, as our name belies, we do invest in innovation, things like school milk through this project. We have another school milk project going on in New York that's working on low sugar, aseptic flavored milk to move into school markets that don't have access to a local farm like we are so lucky to have here in Vermont. And we've invested in packaging innovation to reduce the amount of plastics going into dairy packaging, sensory research on the types of products that consumers want in specialty cheese, and robotics and technology on processing facilities and on farms to really increase innovation and opportunity there. So we love the work we do. It's really awesome, and excited to have it continue into the next few years, and fingers crossed about the next Farm Bill as well. And then I think I introduced Harley. So Harley Sterling is the Nutrition Director for Windham Northeast Supervisory Union.
Highly decorated.
He is an advocate and committed to purchasing local food for schools, including milk, cheese, beef, maple, and produce. 31% of the school food budget is coming from local sources.
That's really high. That's great. Thank you.
And that number is actually the highest in the state. And Harley is a very modest but well-respected leader in the Vermont school food space and the nation, recognized by leadership in Vermont and by the USDA.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Welch. It's definitely the best introduction I've ever had. So it's an honor to be speaking here as part of this lineup. On behalf of my school district, WNESU. I just sort of want to recap that, this all started like last spring, well, for me, sitting right over there in the mud on some milk crates, having lunch with meeting Farmer Pete here for the first time. I thought that was just great. That it's like, well, where are we going to meet? Well, here's some milk crates, and we sat right there. And we had this wild idea of serving organic fluid milk in all of our schools. And you know, to be honest, it was a little bit more of a question at the time, like, okay, are we really going to do this? Is this really going to work? But it seemed like a heavy lift, but I just had a feeling that we could do it and we could make it work. So, you know, I think we all felt the weight of the project at first. It was pretty unheard of to do organic milk in this area. I had never heard of anyone doing it. And, you know, even though my whole food career, I've been a proponent of serving local food, and I cared about organic. I even volunteered on an organic farm when I was 24. So, you know, I was familiar with it, but it was really through meeting these fine folks that I really got to hear the stories and understand the real meaning of what organic means to the dairy industry specifically, in terms of animal welfare and living conditions and, you know, access to graze on the pastures and things, and just all these things that I hadn't known as a chef were a part of the organic label for food. So talking to Pete and Olga and Helen and everyone who was involved in this project really inspired me with the story that I wanted to bring to our kids in our schools. So we started out the pilot doing 5 of our 6 schools, and I was a little nervous about starting it in our 6th school, which was our middle school, just because it's a busy school, age group. You know, I wasn't really sure that it was the right fit, so I wanted to do a soft start. So we started out in 5 schools, and it was really with the conversation that I had with our manager at the middle school, who said to me, "We want this for our kids. Why does every other school get it? We want it here." And I shared my concerns, and she's like, "No, we want this for our kids too. We're going to make it happen." And they did. And by January, we were up and running in all 6 schools, plus a 7th in Brattleboro that we bring meals to. And we kind of let the program run wild. If you know anything about K-12 education in Vermont, every school develops its own way of doing things. But we wanted to see it happen in all of its iterations. We wanted to embrace the idea that this was a pilot. What's it going to look like across many different situations and landscapes? So so we let it go, and we saw things like breakfast in the classroom working. We saw breakfast in the cafeteria. We saw second chance breakfast. And we saw schools that wanted to offer mostly white milk. And then some others who were like, no, we want to do chocolate every day. So we basically had 7 different schools and 14 different ways of doing things. One thing they all had in common, though, is it was working. The 7th graders weren't throwing cups of milk at each other. The kindergartners weren't spending all day drenched from spills, mostly. And of course, the elephant in the room, our food costs weren't spiraling out of control. You know, at the onset, that was going to be the biggest issue we identified, was the fact that carton conventional milk we had been buying was about $4.50 a gallon. And, you know, we were looking at maybe twice that for organic. So we were really concerned, but we saw over the course of the year, I just audited the numbers yesterday, less than a 5% increase in cost.
Why?
Yeah, attributed to why?
Yeah.
Largely attributed to reduction in waste. Through the Offer versus Serve program that USDA has as a flexibility for school lunch and breakfast, kids can choose components that they want, and there's something about getting milk in a cup that they just don't throw it away as much. We saw almost 0 waste. And so consider too the fact that we didn't start at our middle school, which is our largest volume school, until January. The acceleration of savings was missed until more than halfway through the year. So there's a good chance we could have done this at cost neutral, serving organic fluid milk every day in every single school. So I don't want to go on and on, but I'll just say that Senator Welch's point about markets and increasing them, the United States National School Lunch Program is the largest restaurant in the world. I say this a lot. 100,000 franchises, basically, which is more than all the Starbucks, McDonald's, and Subways combined. And the median school district size is about the same as us, 1,100. So not every school lives next to world famous farms, and not every school is in Vermont where we have all this support, all these great NGOs supporting the work we do. But in terms of markets, that's a pretty compelling number to think about, and how this pilot sort of demonstrated that it is certainly possible. So farm to school culture in Vermont, local foods incentive grants that we have passed here, and then of course universal school meals, which makes it so that every kid in our schools here in Vermont knows that they have access to this food and never has to go through what my friend, former colleague in Burlington, Heather Torrey, used to tell a story about this kid who would come through the line, had to give his milk back, and said, "Oh, I thought the milk came with school." We don't have to face that anymore here in Vermont. We're very thankful for that, and we're thankful for the work of all of you. So with that, I'll turn it over to one of my personal heroes here. Definitely a role model for professionalism and just unbelievably knowledgeable. Olga Moriarty from the Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership.
It's a mouthful.
Not to be confused with NOFA.
Exactly. Thank you. NOFA did come first. We have the many same words in our titles, but NOFA's been doing this for like 40 years, and the partnership's only been here since the Horizon contracts, which was just 3 years ago. I'm Olga Moriarty. So our organization is the Northeast Organic Family Farm Partnership, and we were founded when Horizon moved out of the region by Gary Hirschberg, who was the founder of Stonyfield. I see you here today, Jeremy. So Stonyfield is also kind of woven into this story in that the Miller Farm is a supplier to Stonyfield and is part of the reason why we could make this pilot possible. The mission for our organization is to increase the demand for organic milk that's produced in the Northeast. We were not the only organization that was part of this to support this pilot. NOFA Vermont played an enormous part, as well as Farm to Institution New England. But I would say that, farmers are strapped. Food service directors are, working on very slim budgets, and, this is very challenging work. And part of the beauty of this pilot was that there's a lot of groups that came together to make it happen. There's a wonderful collaborative effort that unfolded here, and I know that we feel very honored to have been a part of it, but it's a critical part if this was to continue. There really needs to be community partners that are involved in projects like this. I'm just going to I'll be very quick and just say that our focus has been around organic dairy. In Vermont, we work throughout the whole entire region, but in Vermont, we've lost about half of our dairies in the last 10 years. And that losing any dairies is always a tragedy, but particularly when we're losing our organic dairies, some of our best pasture management people, it's really tragic. And we have lost 70 of them since 2020. That's about 40% of our organic dairy producers in the state of Vermont in 4 years. So this is the critical time to be creating new markets for dairy producers. And our organic dairy, they are specifically committed to building soil matter, keeping air and water clean, reducing the use of fossil fuels, chemical inputs in our food system. I refer to them as grass farmers. They're focused on growing healthy pastures. There's a lot of talk about resiliency in the food system. Our organic dairy producers are focused on this resiliency, which means that they're better prepared for our extreme weather events, the droughts and the floods and everything that the new climate wants to throw at us. It is the agriculture of the future, and it's absolutely worth the investment. I would also say organic is a model that allows farmers to choose to stay small if they want to, and stay as a family-run operation. There's not this intense pressure to keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. The average herd size of an organic dairy in the Northeast is about 70 cows. So it's proof that they can stay small if they want to. And clearly, the smaller, these farms are keeping the cows on the pasture, which is always a beautiful thing to see, but also it's better for our health and better for the environment. I wanted to just quickly tag on to Harley in talking about this as a food access issue. This is organic dairy in public schools, which means suddenly this premium for organic goes away, and we're able to hand not just local milk, but local and organic milk over to students, opening up the threshold and sort of dispelling this myth that organic is only for the wealthy. I think it proves a lot that we're creating a system here that, as Harley says, it can be cost neutral when you're going from cartons of milk into this bulk milk, which could be bulk in 5-gallon bags, or it could be a gallon jug, but it is a different model than these little cartons because there's much less waste, which is then allowing us to have organic milk in schools. It's an incredible model, and the time to work on this project is now. There's also the talk of fewer cartons in the world being made, so this is a time to be moving into bulk for sure, and the moment is to seize it for organic for sure. I just want to thank DBIC and cannot stress enough about how this project would not be possible without the funding from DBIC. And Senator, I know you're a big supporter. I can't encourage you enough to continue to being a champion for this, as well as the Organic Market Development Program, which is another critical piece to solving some of these issues. And then, most importantly, to Peter and to Harley, this really shows an example it's an inspiring example of hard work, determination, collaboration. So often in the news we hear these stories of how hard it is to stay, afloat as a farmer, and here we are celebrating the fact that we're bringing organic milk into schools, we're innovating, we're creating new processing lines, and we're serving healthy milk to hundreds, maybe thousands of kids in Vermont who now are understanding where their milk is coming from and drinking a really healthy product. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who was a part of the pilot. And I'm going to hand it over to Pete and also say it's your birthday. So happy birthday.
Thanks. I don't know, does anybody else feel like they have things to say or questions?
All on you, Pete.
All on me. Well, we got 15 minutes. I think we can. You got 5 minutes.
Yeah, because we have to be the next place.
Okay.
Pretty sorry.
Well, we do have a restroom if anybody needs it in that barn. I'm just grateful that you came out here. I'm grateful for each of the people here, and Lou Noise helped also a lot with the grant writing, and I'm glad to have her here. And I've got a couple workers here.
Hey guys.
Mira and Tyler. And Mira says she met you once before. Where was it, Mira? So, anyway, and I appreciate the press coming out and listening to what's important to us. I do know that for me it's important to get kids drinking milk again. So much of the world is based on stimulants and all these sorts of things. It's good to have, just a natural whole product that the average kid can get access to. And it makes me feel good to be creating a generation of milk drinkers. And I think it's great to have a whole milk for the kids, because then it tastes a lot better and probably more nutritious, and then they can maybe become lifetime milk drinkers. Anyway, and I do cherish many of you as close friends. I also want to recognize Jeremy. Jeremy is one of those farmers that went out. I'm glad Stonyfield picked him up, but that's the face of somebody who couldn't make it go with the economics of organic farming. And
Thank you.
That's incredibly hard. He and I talked before he quit.
Wow.
It's just, I'm glad Stonyfield picked him up. He's going to do a great job there, but I think he probably would have rather had a better price for his product. And he's a good farmer. The people who go out now are all good farmers. It's not like the scum of the earth that quit. We've considered throwing in the towel a few times ourselves in the past few years, even with all this. And it's just hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Very, very hard.
No, that's why what we're doing here is so absolutely critical. We need a huge loss.
So I appreciate the work that Olga's doing, trying to expand the organic market.
Yeah.
Of course, Harley coming over and doing that. But anyway, it's great to celebrate this moment.
Thank you. It
Thank
really
you so
is.
much.
And I recommend the organic maple.
Until you
the
taste the
cookies.
chocolate or the coffee.
That's
or
right. Let's all get in front of the truck and take a picture of everybody, including these guys. So
Okay,
come on over.
All right.